Rob, welcome, man. Welcome to the second episode of CEO Hour. I'm so honored to have you here. I've learned so much from you, and I'm looking forward for you also to share some wisdom and some things that our agents can do to, make more money and live a bigger life.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I'm happy to support you and proud of what you're doing.
Thank you. So, Rob, before we get started with real estate, I would love for you to go ahead and tell us a little bit about us. What should we know about you? Where did you grow up? Do you have a family? How many kids you have?
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California. I was born in the suburbs of Los Angeles, a place called Thousand Oaks, and it's about 30 minutes from downtown LA, about 30 minutes from the beach, and lived there till I was 5. And then we moved to my dad was a grocery store manager. And so we moved to the outskirts of Los Angeles into a bedroom community named Palmdale, California. And that area you guys would probably know it nationwide as the place in the 80s and even in the 90s where the space shuttle used to land at Edwards Air Force Base. So we have a lot of aerospace out there, but it's a bedroom community about 60 miles north of Los Angeles. And that's where I grew up. Lived there until just a couple of years ago, and now I split my time. I have a home out of state, and I split my time between Nashville, Tennessee, and Santa Clarita, California, which is where my market centers are, and we'll get to that. I do have a family. I've got a beautiful wife named Wendy. I have a 22-year-old daughter named Taylor. She's a senior at Cal State Long Beach in California. And I have a 15, just about to be ready to be 16-year-old daughter named Tess, a 15-year-old son named Jack, and a 13-year-old daughter named Ivy. And yeah, they're awesome, man. We're really blessed.
That's awesome, Rob. That's phenomenal. And now let me ask you this. I mean, you're in California, right? You spend your time between Nashville and Santa Clarita. You're multiple owner of multiple market centers. Clearly you've been able to build an amazing business and an amazing reputation here in the U.S. and worldwide. Because I know you coach some team leaders outside of the United States.
In fact,
what got you interested in real estate?
What got me interested in real estate? So I actually want to back up, and you had asked me something that I skipped over, and what it was that I did before real estate. And I think that's important to kind of lead up to this question. So people are always a little surprised by my background. So before real estate, literally right before I got into real estate, I owned a nightclub. I owned a nightclub in the outskirts of Los Angeles, and did that for several years in my 20s. And it was quite the experience. It's all the things that people think running and owning a nightclub would be. And we would have anywhere from 300 people to 700 people, out dancing, having a good time. And so I did that for several years. The reason why I got out of that industry was just, I was in my 20s, getting ready to have a daughter. And I just thought, long term, this isn't what I want to be doing. I didn't feel good about what I was doing for a living. I was completely sober. I didn't drink anything. It was a business to me. But the things that went on around us, people getting drunk, people doing the things that they do at nightclubs, and the money was incredible. The lifestyle was such an experience. So many different stories to tell on a whole nother podcast. I could just soak up a whole hour telling stories about the nightclub business. But I learned a lot about people. And one of the strengths that I have, which are very few, is observing. I like to observe and people watch. My wife and I still do it to this day. And I learned back in the nightclub business what lead generation was. We didn't call it that. We called it promoting, getting people to do something that you want them to do, like show up to a nightclub, right? That was called promoting. And I was able to be really good at that because I paid attention. I was able to connect with people and make things exciting and create culture, cult-like followings, tribal belongings. So I did that for several years. What got me into that was that before owning a nightclub, I was a bartender. And it's actually where I met my wife. I was a server and a bartender at Olive Garden, and I did that for several years. And that's actually what kind of got me into the promoting business and started promoting different nights at different clubs and being a bartender. I got good at that. That allowed me to get into the nightclub business and own my own nightclub and so on. My very first business, though, was a clothing store. I opened it when I was 22, turning 23. We had what was called an action sports boutique store inside a mall. And we sold, it was kind of like a No Fear store before No Fear existed, or, we sold West Coast Choppers, Fox Racing, different brands like this. And it was really exciting. We used to have really cool events, bring out choppers, bring out dirt bikes, stunt riders, really cool stuff. And I had a funny story with that. Like, I had no business being in business. Like, ignorance was bliss when I opened these businesses. I didn't have the right business plan. I didn't have the right money. I certainly didn't have the right mentors. And if I could make one phone call, like that magic phone call, what would you tell your younger self as a young entrepreneur trying to make it happen? It would be get a mentor. And what the pivotal point to me becoming an entrepreneur, even before that, I'm gonna back up just a little bit further, was right around 20, 21 years old. I'm working as a server, bartender, and a friend of mine invites me. He was a little bit older than I was, and maybe in his late 20s. He invited me to a little book club that he was putting on, and they were reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'd never heard of the book before, but I thought this guy was cool. So I'm thinking, I'll go check it out. So I went to this guy's house, and they were literally doing a book club on this book. So I read the book, and the book changed my life because I was absolutely on the path of being this poor dad mentality. And at 20 years old, for the first time ever, I did realize, I guess, that the opportunities that I needed to create for myself were about the way that I was thinking of things, the way I was viewing, and certainly about the people that I was meeting. And to fast forward that, we ended up going to one of these seminars, right, within a few months of this book club. And this seminar was one of those deals where, like, the Friday was free, right? You go and Friday's free. And if you want to come back and do the weekend, the next weekend or something, you had to pay $2,500 for the 3-day course. But they gave you this teaser course as a way to sell this seminar. And so we went to the free day. There's 5 of us in this book club. And they went to sell us, and we all wanted to go so bad. And none of us had the money. None of us had $2,500. And so I pitched something to the group. I said, look, none of us have $2,500, but we all have $500. And here's what I'm going to suggest is that you all chip in $500 and send me. And I will go to the event. And I get what you might be thinking, why not you? One of us has to go. I promise you, if I go, I will get in there. I will write notes. I will meet the people we need to meet, and I will come back, and every night I will download with you what I'm learning, give you my books, and do my very best to regurgitate it. They all agreed. So I went to this seminar, and what really changed my life was not even necessarily the skills they were teaching and so on, but what changed my life about this book and the seminar was that I got to meet some of these people. And I was, approximately, again, 20, 21 years old. And I'm meeting these guys in the breaks, and they're like late 30s, 40s, and so on. And I'm getting to shake their hand. These guys are millionaires. They're self-made. And what occurred to me was, they knew a lot more than me. It wasn't a disrespectful thing, but for the first time, like, it landed with me where I go, like, these guys they're just regular guys. They don't have anything on me. I'm just as smart as them. I'm just as capable of them. What it is that they know something I don't know. It's not that they're different than me. They're not better than me, which was kind of my mentality. Like, oh, that's not for me. I grew up very humble, beginnings. And so that aha moment, that epiphany put me on this path of, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to do these things. It took a few years, but so I've done a lot of things in between. Over the years, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have had beauty salons, construction companies, property preservation companies, nightclubs. I've owned so many different businesses. I could go on and on with that. Import export. I was doing import export. I had an eBay store. Was doing insane sales on that. Got bored with it. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so I'm always looking for that next step. So fast forward, I've got this nightclub, and things are going really well. We're making a ton of money, and I just didn't feel good about what I was doing. So I decided, I'm having this baby. I'm gonna sell the nightclub, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. My wife at the time, she had been selling new homes, and she got into that, because when we bought a new house, the sales agent was like, hey, you're smart, you're good looking, you could do this. and she was making really good money. That didn't appeal to me at all because it was a job. You're going there, you're working for a company, but she was making really good money. And so at the time that I'm selling my nightclub, she's going out on maternity leave. And our decision was she's going to switch from working full time and commuting to this builder. She's going to switch into resale. So she has more flexibility with the baby. And I thought, well, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find out what my next business is going to be. We've got a little reserves now, some money to play with. I'm going to get my real estate license, not because I'm going to do it, but that way I can help you out. You're going to have a new baby. Maybe I need a license just to be able to, help support you. So I went and got my license, and she goes on a maternity leave. Well, when she's on maternity leave, turns out you can't transfer your license from this company to the resale company because she's on maternity leave. She's getting paid. So I thought, well, no big deal. What I'll do is I'll go hang my license with the resale company. We still haven't figured out what we're going to do next with our next business. I'll get the ball rolling. I'll figure this out. You finish up maternity leave, then you come join and take over. And what I learned very, very quickly was about real estate was, number one, the amazing amount of entrepreneur opportunities. Like, I didn't realize how many opportunities there were in the real estate space. And I was learning this very quickly by just meeting people and observing what they were doing. The other thing that I realized very quickly is I was a little disappointed by most real estate agents. I thought these people had a lot more together. I realized they were just more like fly-by-night salespeople. And so I committed to learning. I started taking people to coffee and learning that process of, like, what are the business plans? Where do these things exist? I still call my career nights now what, because there wasn't a plan. So that's how I got into real estate. And that's the Reader's Digest version of it. But I think that's,
yeah. And you know what I heard? I heard a couple of things that really caught my attention. You said that the biggest shift that you had was a mental shift and understanding that there's a whole bunch of people that know something that you don't. And at that point, you were able to fully absorb that, man, the future is just so much bigger. Why am I not taking advantage of that?
Yeah. One of the most foolish things I ever said, one of them, there's many, but it sticks with me. And it was, it was a number of years ago, but this guy was interviewing me and he's going through his different assessments. And he asked me, who do I look to for leadership in my life? Right. And with the bravado of a young man, I kind of like put out my chest. I was like, nobody. I'm a grown ass man. Like, I don't look to anybody for leadership. I am the leader. Like, my friends look to me. I'm the guy making it happen, and I'm beating my chest with this bravado and ignorance of, like, I am the leader that I look to. I don't submit to these other people and look to them to lead me and so on. And it's such a foolish statement. I look back, with kind of a grin thinking about that, because the life hack to young people is to embrace that people have walked before you, and to not submit yourself to being less than, but to submit yourself to the process of having walked through the steps of people that have walked ahead of you, to learn that, and then to embrace the wisdom that comes from their mistakes. When, if somebody says, hey, there's a tripwire here, right? And you're going to trip and fall down this, this staircase because of this tripwire. I don't want to learn that for myself. I'm happy to take that advice of, like, oh, okay, got it. Where's the tripwire? Step over it. Got it. Right? Like, it's going to make life easier. And there was a time in my life where I didn't get that. And that was that aha, was that it's not about somehow being born to a better family or luck or whatever. It was about a choice to embrace, what is a successful model? Who are the people that can teach me? How do I frame myself enough, humble enough to absorb that while being strong enough then to do something about it? I don't want to just be paralyzed by being less than, right? That's a recipe for disaster too.
Absolutely. And you know what I heard you say, Rob, is that there's a direct, what I hear you saying is that there's a direct correlation, between the people that make the choice of being learning based and understanding that there's people that work before them. There's a direct correlation between those people, okay, and the most productive agents out there. Meaning the most productive agents are probably the ones that are the most open-minded to understanding that there's, people have worked before you. You got to find out how they did it and copy it, or study other models, study other systems. What do you think about that?
Um, yeah, no, I agree. I think there's like a bookend with it. You know, specifically with real estate agents, I see, you know, if you were to ask and take a poll of who the most learning based agents are in our industry, like what category of agents are the most curious and learning based and coachable, I would say it's bookended by the highest producers in the company and the people newest to the industry, right? People brand new to the industry are very learning based and curious and all these good things. And then the most successful people, the people in the middle, there's a mantra that is a concern for me that I see constantly with real estate professionals. It's not just realtors, but the space of these independent contractor entrepreneurs like realtors. And what happens is these new agents unfortunately fall into the middle because they learn something from their peers, from the pack, right? And it becomes this social convention to convince yourself that you know what to do and it's just a matter of doing it. And I hear agents say that all the time. Oh, yeah, I know. I know what to do. I just need to do it. That somehow because you've sold a few houses or even made $100,000, whatever it is, because you've had an element of success or been in this business for a few years, like how many realtors say, I've been doing this for 16 years. Like, unfortunately, that doesn't mean a whole lot in this industry. It could mean you're very experienced and successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And so to listen to our peers, you would hear them say, I know what to do. You know, I don't need that. I know how to do that. I'm so good at what I do because I say so. Yeah, I think that's a myth that we convince ourselves of. And yeah, I would suggest that the highest producing agents are the ones that either one were able to hold on to that curiosity and keep it through the growing pains of getting through the middle, or what I think is probably even more common is that they had to remember how to be that curious. They went through that trial in the middle of thinking they knew what to do and not being learning based and coachable to an extent, and then were somehow disrupted and got back to that and were able to go to the next level. You know, I see Gary, this is a great example. Gary Keller is given so much credit for being such a profound thinker. And you'll hear him ask a question, and because of his success, you'll hear people summarize his question as it's just so profound. That's such a good question. Like there's Gary's mastery, you know, coming to the surface. And what he would share with you, and I've heard him share it with, you know, me in rooms, is that people are giving him too much credit. He is literally asking the simplest of questions because he's trying to learn as if he knew nothing. Like, treat me like I know nothing. He's asking this question with a genuine curiosity, like, Josue, what do you do? How are you successful? Right? And we're like, oh, that's such a good question. Right? No, he's genuinely asking these nuances from a very simplistic, learning-based and curious standpoint. And he writes these things down. They study it. Right? I think that's what top producers have in mind or in common is that they are that curious about what successful people do.
Absolutely. Bob, and I mean, I'm taking notes as we speak because I really want to understand your perspective on this. I mean, I heard you say a couple of things that I thought were phenomenal. You said experience doesn't equal growth, meaning, and we've seen this. There's many people that have been in the business for 10 years, 15 years, yet have had the same year over and over again. And what I've seen over the last few months, as the market starts to change, and we'll jump on that in a minute, is that those agents who were on that pattern of not growing, of not implementing, proven models and systems, that were just depending on their natural behavior, and they were comfortable with that. As the market started to shift, also their business started to decline. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there could be several, right? I think if I was going to make a generalization about a shift and why, you're seeing these, there's a couple of things about a shift that agents, I don't think they're bought into enough and make the adjustments. The first one is that what shifts about a market is the motivations. Like that's what's shifting. The same people own the houses. The same people that were qualified to buy a house and had the jobs, right? They were within a demographic of affordability for your area. Those same people still have those jobs now that they did a year ago. So they were qualified a year ago, they're qualified now, they owned a home a year ago, they own it now. What changes about a shifting market is the motivations and why they might transact in a real estate transaction. That's what shifts. And so if their motivations change, if their reasons for buying or selling change, then the way that we interact with those motivations needs to pivot, right? Like we need to shift. So if, for instance, these very high level, if you think about this, could you imagine if the last 3 years, right? Like 3 years ago, if you would have interviewed me and you said, hey, Rob, it's 2019. What is your number one focus for your business? And I said, it's getting REO accounts. I need to have foreclosure accounts because, I had this friend 10 years ago that made $1 million selling foreclosures. So every single day I wake up and I call banks asking for foreclosure accounts and for their short sale department to help them short sale homes. Like that market was non-existent 3 years ago. That was probably not a great strategy, even though at one time that was an excellent strategy. It might even be one again. But it doesn't change the fact that my skills, my motivations to be successful are all there. Like all those things are the same. What changes is the motivation to sell a home. That's not one of the motivations. And realtors need to understand that if your friends and family were excited to tell you that they want to buy a new home and sell their current home because they have more equity, that motivation, when that home starts becoming worth less or their stresses change and so on, that motivation might also change. So the way I talk to them and when I talk to them has to change as well. We have to pivot our conversations to match their motivations.
Yes, and I remember on Monday, Rob, we talked about, Gary always says, hey, you need to do twice as much during a shift. And we saw it in the shift book, we saw it in Mega Camp, we saw it in Family Reunion. Why is it so important, to do stuff as twice as much?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because that's the other part about this shift. And Gary's been talking about this a lot. He said, in the shift, one of the most critical areas that we need to focus on is that conversion rate of getting the appointment. This is the one conversion area that changes, and it takes more conversion effort around getting the appointment than it does in other market. And so my question was like, why? Like, why? I'm bought in. I'll just do it because you say so. But if the market only goes down 5%, why do I need to do twice as much lead generation to get the same business? I should only have to get 5% more effort in order to make the same amount of money, right? That would be logical. And here's what I learned by talking to smarter people is that in a shift, the first thing that comes to a shifting market when things change is uncertainty. Okay, uncertainty comes to the market first, where we start hearing all these different interpretations. Uncertainty starts flooding the market. Now, statistically, about 2/3 of people, human beings in the world, they lead with their S behavior style. So they're high S's. This is most people. And the greatest fear of a high S is change. So right off the bat, when we bring uncertainty, which means change and things are different, right off the bat, 2/3 of the people in the world are just already a little afraid of the changes that are happening because it's not consistent, it's uncertain. So now we're dealing with an industry and clients and so on that things are uncertain in the market. They're afraid of the change. Fear is heightened. And you can see that in the world today, like fear levels and uncertainty, distractions, all these things are like at a high. I can't remember a time in my lifetime anyways, and I've talked to people older than me that say the same thing, that the fear, the narratives and the distractions have never been higher. So what happens when you add the shift into it is that because there's so many distractions and so much fear emotionally keeping me, my attention span smaller and smaller and smaller, the lead generation efforts have to go up, not because of any other reason than the people I'm friends with have had a decrease in their attention span, which means that with all the distractions of the world, in order for Josue to still remember that I'm his guy, I have to interact with him twice as much as I did to stay top of mind with him, because the rest of the world is trying to suck up all of his attention. And it's distracting him. He's forgetting about friends. He's forgetting to call his family, all these things. That's why we have to engage at twice the level, is to just maintain what we have in a world of more distractions and fear.
Why do you think nobody talks about that?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. One is they may not know. right? You don't know what you don't know. Another reason is just like people that watch this call or hear it from you later or from me later. Sometimes we don't want to accept the truths that we don't like. We want to play ostrich and bury our head in the sand and hope for the things that mimic luck, right? Like I don't like the idea of Gary telling me that I'm gonna have to make twice as many efforts to create my opportunities as I've had to make recently. That's a bummer, right? Like I may not like that news, so I may choose to not really do anything with it because I don't like it. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what the evidence says. So I think the first chapter of Shift book, which is Get Real and Get Right, I think that's something that we could all just kind of land on and sit with for a minute. What Get Real and Get Right means to me is let's get real honest. Let's just get real transparent, real honest, with high integrity and in reality. That's what getting real. Like, let's just be totally transparent and real about what is. And if I can double my opportunity creating efforts and thrive and increase my market share when my competitors are going down, like that's something I need to be really honest about what that looks like.
That makes sense. And I agree. There's also a lot of people that, they say, oh, I've been through this before, I've done that before. And yet, they're ignoring the truth that something is happening and they must change if they want to keep the same amount of business or grow their business on the upcoming months. Now, Rob, talking more specifically, like there's some markets and I was looking at some data, like states like Florida, Idaho, Arizona, who perceived at some point the most appreciation over the last 3 years. Now they're seeing the most amount of price reductions every single month, right? Like how, from your perspective, you've coached so many productive agents and so many leaders out there. How does the schedule of a top producing agent look like during a shift?
It's a really good question. And what I would start with first is it looks intentional, right? The people that are intentionally successful, I would say that the highest denominator with creating success is a winning routine, like where we're doing the same things automatically, subconsciously when we wake up. When you wake up is critical. When you start your day, how you start your day, a winning routine. Successful people have figured this out. And let me jump in a little deeper too, like why, right? Like we've all heard about the 5 a.m. club and all these things, right? And I think it was you that I was sharing with, but if it wasn't, I watched this podcast and this guy was talking about why the psychology of this works. And what he was saying is that these agents or anybody, successful people, it's a mind game that they're playing with themselves. When you wake up early and you start your day right and you had integrity around your routine and you got to the office, you did the most important things when they're supposed to get done and maybe even earlier than your competitors and earlier than the people in your office, you're not just getting a leg up on them. Because if that was the case, if it was just about first, then people in New York would all be wealthier than people in Los Angeles, and people in Europe would all be wealthier than people in New York, and people in Japan would all be wealthier than people in Europe, right? It's not just about earlier, it's a mind game. When I get to the office early, I've subconsciously proven to myself that I'm willing and able to do something hard that other people are not willing to do. And by doing that without anybody else seeing it, I saw it. I saw myself do that. And now I believe in myself a little bit more. And I believe that I'm more deserving of that success because I did the thing that nobody else was willing to do. And then I did the work and I had the discipline to remove the distractions and to do the things that give me the higher ROI during a time that my energy is highest and I have a higher success rate. And I am watching that. And I am then furthering my truth and belief that I am capable and I am deserving of what I'm creating. And then the people around me see me doing it, and it furthers my evidence. They start behaving both verbally and non-verbally in a way that validates that I'm more deserving, because they're like, wow, look at you, man. You did all that by 10 a.m. That's incredible. They're validating my belief already that I'm more deserving. And so what happens is I start behaving as someone that's more successful because I believe I am that person. So when I say, look, it's about a winning routine, it's not just about, what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. It is a big part of that. Absolutely. But there's something deeper psychologically to that. It's that when you do those things and you prove to yourself that you're willing to do them and be consistent about it, the little devil on your shoulder has to shut up. And when you make some declaration like, you know what, between now and Thanksgiving, I'm going to walk 2 miles every single day as fast as I possibly can. And I'm going to release and shed 10 pounds before Thanksgiving. The little devil on your shoulder goes to speak up and give you a drunk monkey talk. And he goes, crap, you probably will, man. Every time you set your mind to something, you do it. He's got nothing to say. And then it becomes this vicious cycle where momentum is the big exaggerator in a good way instead of the bad way. And that's why a winning routine is critical. It's not just about the statistics of getting there early. It's about the mindset game that we have to prove to ourselves that we're willing to have the discipline to do these things. When we can prove that, it becomes a belief. When we believe it, we behave as if it's true because it is to us. Does that make sense?
Yes, interesting. And, within that, I heard a couple of concepts that, like, we're familiar with them, yet most people may not be familiar with them. I heard removing the distractions, which will equal building a bunker around you in the morning. So how does your bunker look like to make sure that you'll go ahead and eliminate all the distractions, all the incoming calls? So how do you deal with, we know we have to lead generate in the morning, yet everybody calls us in the morning. How do you deal with that, Rob?
Okay, so building a bunker, great question, by the way. Great question. First thing, here's just some pro tips and best practices that I've learned because I'm a high D, high I, right? I'm all over the place. I get ADD, I'm all those things. First thing I would tell you is a routine helps my subconscious. So when I do the same things at the same time, I don't have to always be looking to my calendar and all those things, right? I can get a rhythm about this stuff. So that's one, is schedule these things at the same time, the same days and so on. That's one. Two, when you do schedule it, this is critical. When you schedule it, make sure you physically put it on your calendar. Put it on there where it's a visual aid. You can see it. There's reminders, these barriers, right? And then share it with people. They're going to help, watch your six. They're going to watch your back. Maybe that's an accountability partner. Maybe that's an assistant or someone you work with. Maybe it's just a peer partner that you invite into this world that can help you stay accountable. Maybe it's your spouse, your partner, whatever that looks like. But invite people to share your calendar with so that they can see that you're in these things. The second thing that I would recommend is I have found that, and I could share it, I think I've showed it to you, is the more models and systems that I can create around focus. And so I like to do simple things like when I time block something, I put it on my calendar, not just who I'm meeting with, but I will create myself links to the notes, right? Everything that I need, like my little debrief for that appointment to do that thing, I'm going to create shortcuts, copy the link, post the shortcut in the hyperlink in that scheduled calendar event on my schedule. So when I go to do that thing, let's say I'm going to make my database calls. Well, when I click on that event on my calendar, there's a little hyperlink that goes right to my database management system. There's a little hyperlink that goes straight to my Google Drive where my scripts are. There's a little hyperlink that goes to whatever I'm going to need. It's all right there. Like, I'm going to take that time. Okay, when I do that is on Sundays. I really do the heavy lifting. I go through my schedule. I'm journaling, right? Having the discipline to Sunday afternoons or Sunday mornings to time block an hour or two to watch podcasts and journal and block out your schedule. The other thing that I do is every single evening I do a recap where I'm looking back at my day, changing things around so that in the morning, it's a much quicker recap. I don't need to be setting my schedule in the morning. It's too late. Okay. So time blocking, thinking time on Wednesdays to set your schedule. Oh, I'm sorry, on Sundays to set your schedule. Going over it quickly in the morning, just to be reminded, but be consistent about it. And then in the evenings, I'm recapping and adjusting and putting in links and things like that on those schedules so that I have everything I need to during that time. And I don't have to chase things, having my water, having my books, having my links all during that time. The other thing that I would tell you that's going to help you with your bunker, and not enough people do this, is schedule that time appropriately. And that means that you have to schedule your breaks. Like, where on your schedule Does it say stand up and walk around, drink water, get some exercise, eat lunch, go look at something funny? You better take breaks. If you think for somehow that you're just going to go in there and do all these things and burn yourself out for 3 hours, and then you have this appointment right after, when are you going to go to the bathroom? When are you going to drink water? Like, when are you going to do these things? Block those things in there into these things. So you have these little breaks. And I would say, don't do anything for more than probably an hour and a half, like at one time before you take a break or just a reset. That way you can rebuild that energy and then go back to the next thing.
It sounds like, it feels, man, like almost like you're like a hacker. You find every possible way of hacking your routine and making sure it has the less friction as possible.
That's a great way to put it. What I understand about myself is that I'm not naturally organized. I'm not naturally that way. I'm not naturally task oriented, right? So I've told you this, but I say, like, I'm like a race car. I want to go fast. I want to win, right? And the problem with the race car, like, you could think about it, if we took a race car right there in Rutherford, New Jersey, right? And we took like a Formula One car and we just like pulled it off the trailer and just started hauling ass through the city, you're going to crash and burn, right? It's too fast, all these things. But you put a race car on a racetrack and the race car can go as fast as it can go. It knows where to turn, it knows where to accelerate, it knows where to brake, right? And so racetracks to my race car are models and systems to my desire to go fast. Right? My wife and I have a joke from the Backyardigans. Remember that cartoon when you were a kid? Hey, Josue, you were literally a kid. My kids were kids when it was the Backyardigans had this song where they would sing, "I don't want to go slow, I go fast." And I still sing it all the time. Like, my wife's like, "Hey, slow down." I'm like, "I don't want to go slow, I go fast." And so models and systems, anytime I'm looking to do something where I go, man, I need to be able to do this frequently, quickly, and I want to win at it, I go, well, I'm the race car. I got horsepower, I got desire, I got all that. I need a racetrack. What is the model? What is the system? That's not always me who creates it. I might just be casting a vision of what I need, and I'll go to someone who has it or find the one and adopt it. And so, yeah, call it life hacking, whatever. But I understand without that race track, without the model, without the system of doing something, I'm just going to crash and burn. I want to go too fast.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's no coincidence, Rob, that we spent pretty much the whole time talking about mindset, talking about routines. Because as you stated, when you started talking about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, once you shifted the way you were thinking, at that point you were able to take massive action and see some results. So I love it. I mean, clearly you built a bunker, you put some models around yourself because you knew you were not naturally organized. Those models allowed you to go at the speed that you wanted to go, and that way you were able to truly work more comfortable.
Yeah, one of the pieces. Yeah, well said.
That's amazing. And Rob, just one last question. I get this question a lot too, is, with the market the way it is, and we talked about personality styles, we talked about human behavior. What are some books that you would recommend agents to be reading right now to change the way they were thinking? Some podcasts, some books. What do you recommend?
That's okay. To change their mindset, or just books that realtors should be reading?
Books that are relevant right now, that the market is shifting. There's so much uncertainty for people to understand and change the way they were thinking.
Okay, so let me answer that in two parts. I'm going to give you some of the prerequisites I would say every realtor should read. Number one is you should learn backwards and forwards Dale Carnegie's Winning Friends and Influencing People. Learn that book backwards and forwards. It's a fantastic book that was written a long time ago. The fundamentals still apply. What I'm currently reading right now is the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It's a good, I'm not finished with it. It's a really good book. But for what everyone should be reading, I would say Dale Carnegie's book. I would also read the seven levels of communication. It's on the tip of my tongue who the author is. The 7 levels of communication, great understanding of how people behave with communication. It's fundamentally a book on how to create and manage a database. It doesn't say that, but that's more or less what you're talking about. How do you organize and communicate with a group of people? Fantastic book. The Miracle Morning, fantastic book. The One Thing, can't emphasize that one enough. The MREA, these types of books are fundamental to what we do. The Compound Effect, excellent book on understanding the mindset of progressive growth, getting better than you were, just yesterday. However, if I was going to say, what should you be doing right now? There's quite a few things, but I'm gonna pull it up into like one piece of advice, and it includes reading books and going on the podcast and so on. But this is what I would tell you: what is the thing that you can be doing to better yourself for this coming market? What can you be learning and reading? Is surrounding yourself and having conversations with people that mimic the behaviors, that demonstrate the behaviors that you want to become more like. So what that means is that I'm not going to tell you who you should be. So the books that I really enjoyed may not be the same ones that you either need or want. But if you've decided you want to be the very best mother that you can be, and you happen to want to make some money in real estate, start finding who the very best mothers are in your world, and spend money, spend energy, and how you get into their world. How do you read their books? How do you spend time with them? How do you take them to coffee? Spend that same money that you would spend on some course and take those women to lunch and learn from them. Same thing with whoever you want to be more like. If you've got a business person, find out who the most successful business person is that you see yourself becoming more like, and read their books, read their Facebook, whatever, watch their podcast, buy them lunch, fly to their event, right? Absorb that. Find friends that think like this. In dog training, the number one way to fix a dog behavior, if you have a dog that has bad behaviors, the easiest way to do it is you just take that dog and you put him in to a group of dogs that has excellent behaviors. The pack will correct the behavior. It will correct automatically and quickly. It's the fastest way to correct that behavior is just put the dog with a pack that is disciplined and has all these behaviors. You want to train a puppy? Put the puppy with a bunch of dogs that are highly disciplined. Excellent, right? People are no different. Josue, there's a reason why these universities and schools and all that stuff are more expensive than others, and it's because of the environmental impact that it has, right? Surround yourself with people that you want to become like. And I mean, surround yourself with, literally look at who you're spending the most time with. Who am I having conversations with? Who's on this podcast? Whose books am I reading? Get into the pack. Take yourself out of the pack that you want to break patterns of. Put yourself literally into the pack, doing life with the people that mimic the behaviors that you want to be more like. Read the books that they're reading, talk about the things they're talking about, go to the places they're going, mimic their behaviors. That is the thing that transform your life and your business more than anything. Because if I just tell you what my book is, it may not be the one that lands with you.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. I 100% agree with that. And even, Rob, like you can see, once you start surrounding yourself with people like that, you start picking up words. You start picking up different thought processes that you never thought of having before. Like, since we started coaching together last year, like I feel I've changed so much for the last 12 months. I'm just super thankful for you because you're one of those people that have changed my life the last 12 months, and I'm super appreciative for you, man.
Man, I'm humbled. I'm humbled to hear you say that. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm so very grateful to be a part of your journey on your racetrack.
Thank you, partner. All right. With that, we'll conclude our second episode of CEO Hour. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Rob, thank you for accepting my invitation, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.
All right, man. See you later.